Of course.
Okay. Well, look, when thinking about the theme of regret, I quickly realised that there were two things that came to mind. One that I've dealt with, and the other one, not so much. The first one centres around my little sister, who's been an ABBA fan for the longest amount of time I can remember. To the extent that all of our car trips were always soundtracked to the same ABBA compilation. And there's only so much ABBA I can listen to before I want to go out into the world and find Fernando and meet him and beat him to death with his own shoes. Yeah, I can't. And this all kind of came to a head when I was 6 years old, and in a moment of madness and rare lucidity, I undid my seatbelt and reached out, ejected the cassette tape, rolled my window down very, very quickly and jettisoned the tape out of the car. And this provoked in my sister what I can only refer to as a Dickensian hysteric, and also provoked a bollocking from my mum afterwards. And the way I dealt with that regret was, for her 16th birthday, rattled with guilt, I bought her the vinyl, the CD, and the cassette tape of ABBA Gold, and basically told her how sorry I was. And I remember at the time basically telling my mum how deeply regretful I was for that moment, because it is to this day, I think, one of the cruelest things I've ever done. And I remember my mum telling me, you know, that it was a good thing that I confronted that regret, but in that conversation, she very quickly told me also, some regrets are good to have, and some regrets, you know, don't need to be resolved. And that brings me on to my second regret, a regret which I carry to this day with a scar on my chest. Basically, I was 23 years old, and skipping a few details, I was diagnosed with a brain tumour. And yeah, basically, it put my life on hold for a very, very long time, and put me in hospital for the best part of a year. And at the time, the doctor who was taking care of me was basically saying, you might want to write a will, because your chances are slim. And thankfully everything went well and the will became obsolete. But what I wasn't told at the time was that everything that had gone prior to that, so these thunderous headaches and this absolutely terrible, terrible pain, was nothing compared to what was going to come later on. So basically, more tubes connected to me than somebody who hadn't been disconnected from the Matrix yet, and all this muscle re-education, chemotherapy, and just also the valuable life lesson that I learned at that time, which was that the world goes on. People move on, friends, family, girlfriends, they all very naturally move on. And you're kind of left in a hospital bed looking at the same four walls for a very, very long time and dealing with pain. And that all came to a head at the time when, also in a rare moment of lucidity and madness, one evening I decided to rip out every single tube that was coming out of my body, so from my arms, my hands, my neck, my chest, and roll on the ground. And I hadn't thought things through because my legs at the time weren't capable of standing me in a vertical position. So I lay there on the ground, just kind of feeling like this pulsing of blood just coming out of me, just going, oh, this is fun. Okay, well, this is how it ends. Oh, nice one. And thankfully, a nurse who I'd gotten to know over the months was doing her shift and found me, and she got me back into bed, bandaged me up, plugged me back into all the various things. And I was in tears, and I tearfully just kind of asked her, just promise me you won't tell anyone what I've done, specifically not my mum. Because my mum came every single day after work, and she never gave up on me. And I hated the fact, the idea that she could learn from someone else that I'd given up, and that in a moment that I just wanted to die. And bless her, that nurse kept her promise. And to this day, I've never been able to tell my mum what this scar is about, because I'd yanked the tube so far it left a mark. And I thought about confronting that regret and actually coming clean about it. And I realised over the years how little I wanted to do that, purely because mums, as they tend to be frustratingly right about most things, and that's what she was referring to back then. That certain regrets are useful, and certain things don't need to be resolved, and certain things, whether they're painful or anything else, big, small, whatever, just tend to be okay, and it's all part of life to be able to just basically just deal with regrets in a useful way and in an unresolved way. So yeah, to this day, still haven't told her, and I think that if I were to tell her and to come clean, the kind of life-affirming aspect of that scar would somehow be diminished in some shape, way, or form. And it might sound like an almighty cop-out in many ways, but it works. Some regrets are useful. And ABBA sucks.